Hey guys, it's Tony, and we're back on the bench. And this evening we're getting into more service projects. And this evening we're going to be diving into a quantum surf spinning reel here. So this is a Quantum XR6 long stroke. It's a beautiful reel, a ball bearing reel. These are made in Bangladesh by Zebco, stamped under here. This reel is in really good shape except for one problem. I previewed this recently. When it's all the way on the downstroke here, it kind of gets a little stuck and it's really hard to turn almost at that point. Okay, now I recently had a similar problem just like this with one of my older Daiwa 4000Cs. Same kind of deal where it was kind of rubbing a little bit at a certain part of the stroke. And so I'm curious to see if this actually has the same problem that that reel had. We won't really know until we get into it and take it apart, and we'll find out. So we're going to do a full service on this reel, and hopefully we can remedy that problem. I have a pretty fair idea of what it could be. So we're going to find out here shortly. So we're going to start with taking the handle off here. But once again, I mean, this reel, it's a pretty good, hefty size reel. So it's appropriate, for surf fishing and whatnot. Looks like we can get 250 yards of 15-pound test on this. So that kind of gives you a scope of what the size is of this reel. We got a really, really nice drag stack in here. I'm going to put this off to the side for right now. Okay, looks like we've got a lot of fresh grease on here. We're going to take out these screws and we're going to have a look here on the inside, but it says that this is a ball bearing reel. It doesn't say ball bearings though, so my guess is it probably has one main ball bearing. Very lightweight reel, which I kind of like. A lot of the time when you're surf fishing or shore fishing, you kind of want to pack it in light usually because you're lugging everything around, whether it be in the sand or the mud or the tulies or whatever. And sometimes you got to walk a pretty good distance, to get to the areas that you want to fish. But this reel is equally helpful for pier fishing or even off of a boat, so it doesn't have to necessarily be for surf fishing. Okay, so we're going to pop this top off here. But yeah, I can tell right now this is all plastic components right here. So that is one downside, is that if you crack the plastic, you're going to be looking for another reel. Okay, but we've got a nice big main gear in here, and I think we got to get this. We got to get our main drive shaft out first before we can take that out. So we'll back that screw out. We'll get this main drive line out of here. Put that over here actually. Main gear. Now all this grease is actually relatively clean for the most part. We're going to clean it up anyway though, of course. We've got the block. We've got a crosswind gear. I'm just going to take out these parts as we go. And we'll clean them all up, of course. Looks like there's a bushing down here, but it doesn't look like it's meant to actually come out. Okay, we've got a set screw here that we're going to back out. And I don't know the size of this, but we're going to find out here shortly. It kind of looks like it might be maybe a 14. So yeah, this is a 14 millimeter. So if you got a socket or an open end wrench, you should be able to back this off. It's pretty wide open up here on the top of the rotor. Okay, so first thing is first, we're going to have a look here. We're going to see why that would be doing that. And to my surprise, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the problem. So I'm going to try to zoom in on this. So we've got a lot of grease buildup right here. Okay, but if you look more carefully right here, we've got a lot of grease built up here. as well. And I think probably part of what's going on is that grease is just rubbing. It's kind of hard to tell though. I don't know, but there is a lot of excessive grease going on here, and the bearing is just completely immersed in this old grease right here. So what we want to do essentially is we want to clean up all of that and get all that grease out of there. There's no need for that to be there at all. There's quite a bit of it. Okay, so we're going to back out these 3 screws here, and we're going to take out our pinion gear and our main bearing. And what I'm going to do off camera is we're going to clean up all of these parts just to help conserve time on this video. We're going to try to knock this out quickly here this time, but we're going to clean up all these parts. We're going to take some WD-40 and some Q-tips and whatnot. We're going to spend some time getting all these parts nice and clean. And for some reason, this bearing doesn't want to seem to free up, which is interesting. Okay. Well, when you get into a situation like this, there's a couple of tricks that you can use. And no, you don't want to go banging away on stuff or, prying a screwdriver in there and try to tap it out. You'll likely break something on a reel like this. But one method is to reattach the rotor, and then you can just give the rotor nut a couple of turns right here just to kind of secure it on there so that it doesn't fly off. And then you can use this as leverage usually to kind of pry up on that. And in this case, that's not really working. So we're going to have another look at it. I'm just going to keep trying here. Oh, there, finally came off. So that's one method that you can use, but there are some other methods, but they're usually a little bit more abrasive. Okay, so we've got our main bearing off, and then we've got this this ratchet, and you want to make note of the orientation of this part. You want to make sure that it goes back on the right way. All right, now it's very, very dirty and greasy in here, so what we will do is we're going to deploy some WD-40 to these parts here. Okay, and we're going to take this guy right here and hose this bearing down quite a bit because it's just loaded with grease in there. And then I'm going to pause the video, clean all this up, get this reel ready back for a little bit of rebuild. Okay, so we're back, and we've been spending some time cleaning up all these parts really well. There was actually quite a bit of grease buildup, on the inner chamber here, and we're just kind of finishing that up right now. Lots of Q-tips. I've got a whole stack of them over here off to the side. You really want to get all the old grease out as much as you possibly can. All right, but this cleaned up real nicely, and so we're going to get back into doing some rebuild here now. Okay, so we're going to start simply here with these parts. This main bearing, it was pretty dirty actually, loaded with a lot of old dirty grease, which is usually not a good thing. And it was really rough. It had a lot of roughness to it, and now we've smoothed that out quite a bit. Soaking this in some WD-40 for about 20 minutes or so, and that makes a big difference. Okay, so we've got our pinion gear. We've cleaned out all these teeth, and so we're going to go back with some fresh blue grease on the pinion gear as usual, just like so. Okay, and then we've cleaned up our ratchet here. Okay, and then we'll slap our bearing back on top. We're going to use some Real X just to top off those bearings, like so. Yeah, Smooth as hot butter. Okay. And then we also got to put this anti-reverse lever back in here as well. Rest like that. Okay, that's going to open up this latch here, and then it's helpful to put it in the off position here so that it gets it out of the way while we go to reinstall all this. Okay, so we'll set this back down in place like so. Okay, that's a lot better already, I think. And then we're going to take these screws here and we're going to put these back into position. So hopefully everything that we're doing here is going to solve that dilemma that we had with this reel kind of bottoming out and getting kind of sluggish there at the bottom. I'm not sure if that was because of grease buildup here or maybe some kind of grease buildup internally. Not 100% sure. In the case of my Daiwa 4000C that I serviced recently and I did a video on, it was having a similar problem, but it was a lever that was kind of in this position, anti-reverse lever, and the screw came loose and it traveled upwards and started rubbing the rotor. You know, this reel doesn't have that kind of assembly, so that's clearly not the case. But we're going to tighten up these screws. You don't ever want to over tighten these, especially when you're dealing with a plastic housing like this. This is an all plastic housing, and after looking at this reel further, I mean, yeah, you could use this in the surf and it would work fine, you know, but this is also a fairly decent catfish reel as well, I'd say, you know, for freshwater catfishing. Okay. Okay, so we've got that going good for us there. All right, we've cleaned up our main gear pieces here, crosswind gear, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so next though, we're going to slap our rotor back on here, and we're going to apply a little bead of oil here. Let that work that lever, and then we're also going to put some here on the bail seams as well, just like so. Rotor nut back on. 14 millimeter. Also don't want to over tighten that too much. You just want to make it snug, and then you've got this set screw here to kind of keep it in position for you. And I'm actually gonna just back this off just a slight hair, because what happens is, you know, you apply too much of that tension and it does kind of compress down, and then you'll run into issues like that. I'll tighten that down there, and then we've got our crosswind gear. I'm gonna put that in place, hit that with some blue grease underneath here, and then also some on the teeth, and the stud here. And even though it's all primarily plastic, there is a brass bushing down here that this rides on, so you want to make sure that you get some grease in there. And then we're also going to take a little bit of oil, just a little light bead of oil there to that ratchet as well. Put that in position there. And then we've got our block. We've cleaned this out, that channel. And we're going to go back with the fresh blue grease there. So as usual, these are relatively simple steps. You just want to make sure that you do the prep and the cleaning. You know, it's like painting a house. You know, it's all about the prep. You have to do those key components in order for you know, your paint job to pay off for you. We're going to take a little 4-0 steel wool though to this shaft here, and try to shine this up and make it as smooth as we possibly can get it there. That's quite a bit better there. Also take this plastic bushing off. But yeah, I can see why this reel is so lightweight, because there's so much of it that's plastic, you know, in the body here, primarily. Okay, we're going to do 4/0 steel wool and then blue grease on the shaft here, both sides. And we're going to slap this back on there right now, and then we're going to top these gear teeth off. Nice big gear though. Slide that back into position just like so. And then we've got our main gear shaft. We've already taken the 4/0 steel wool to this drive line, and we're just going to top it off with a little bit of blue grease here. So yeah, so far this is cleaning up quite nicely, and hopefully there'll be a lot of fishing left in this reel. A little drop of oil right there, and then got our set screw here, and we're going to turn that. And then we don't want to forget our spool here and drag kit, so let's have a quick look at that as well while we're here. Nice big drag stack here, it looks like. Good size washers, clean, and it looks like they're somewhat oiled. Kind of dirty oil here, but that's okay. We'll clean that all up. Yeah, it's a little soaked in there, but that's okay. We'll take a Q-tip here. We'll clean all that out. Do a little bit of real oil here, just because that's metal on metal there. Okay, and all we really need to do is just kind of clean off these washers. These are rubber style washers. These don't really need to be lubricated, really. They're not fiber washers per se, really. They're more of a kind of a rubberized type material. Metal washer, drag washer. But I like the size of this, the diameter of these. Got your keyed washer here, because that'll definitely give you more max drag power when you're battling a bigger fish. So put our snap ring back in there. That's ready to go. We're going to put our side cap back on here, side plate. And we've got some little notches here, and here. Just got to make sure that you line up that that bushing, that plastic bushing, just right, so that those mesh. And we'll spin up these side plate screws, just like so. And yeah, I'd say probably the key to, you know, maintaining a reel such as this, or really any spinning reel, is just make sure that you definitely rinse it off after you use it in salt water, And, one might say, well, this is plastic, that's not going to be affected by that. Well, yeah, that's true, but there's still metal parts. And believe me, the salt spray and the sand will get into everything in a fishing reel. Okay, it happens. And you want to make sure that you rinse it off with fresh water, and also just do regular maintenance. And that's what these videos are about, is to teach you how you can do this kind of servicing on your fishing reel. And everything that we've done here on this reel, frankly, applies to a lot of spinning reels. Just the simple design of them. Granted, there's variances, there's some differences, from reel to reel, but just kind of like the overall functionality is kind of the same. They've got a bail wire like this. They've got a drag system. It's either top or it's at the bottom. And then there's a gearing system inside. The only other thing that varies primarily is the amount of bearings. So, and in this case, we've only got one. And sometimes just having one bearing is totally fine. I mean, I don't get fancy with ball bearings. I typically won't use any reels that have more than 2 or 3 bearings, typically, at the most. So, okay, and then we've got our handle here. Just want to take a light bead of oil here, just to kind of keep that lubricated, and then just a little spell of it right there. And then we'll take the blue grease to the shaft here real quick. Okay, and then we'll take our thumb screw here. And this is a convertible reel, so you can go either side, it looks like, with this handle. And that's helpful for a lot of people. Okay, so I'm just going to dry off our glove here real quick. And dry off the reel a little bit and get some of this penetrating oil off of it. And we're going to try this out. We're going to see how it performs. We don't have that bottoming out problem anymore on the downstroke, so that's good. Anti-reverse. That's all working good. Bail fire is good. It's good to see. And then we'll clamp down on this here drag stack and see how that performs. Almost too much. Yep, that's good. And always make sure that you back that drag off when you're not using the reel. So there you have it. That is the Quantum XR6 long stroke spinning reel, and it's all serviced and it's ready to go. So thanks again for watching. This is Tony with Back on the Bench. If you like the video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please make sure you do subscribe and hit the notification button. And that way you'll get all the updates as to when there are new videos being posted. And I do intend to have quite a few more rolling out shortly, so make sure you stay tuned for those, and we'll see you next time.